I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Financial Planning and Supervision Commission of the City of Norwood. Before I call the roll, Mr. Van der Haar had expressed regrets he was unable to make it today, had conflict with work, and also Ms. Longenecker was unable to attend, and in her place is Troy Quinlan with the Treasurer of State's office, and I do have his designee letter here. Okay, calling the roll. Mayor Schneider.
Present.
Council President Miracle.
Here.
Mr. Schwartz.
Here.
Mr. Shepard.
Here.
Mr. Van der Haar is absent. Mr. Quinlan.
Here.
Ms. Hanrahan here. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the prior meeting's minutes. I would ask Mr. Quinlan to abstain. I did send them out early, or not too early, and there are pages, but I would entertain any amendments, clarifications, or corrections at this time. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move.
Mr. Schwartz moves. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepard seconds. On a roll call, Mayor Schneider.
Yes.
Council President Miracle.
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz.
Yes.
Mr. Shepard.
Yes.
Mr. Quinlan abstains. Ms. Hanrahan, yes. Okay, next item is the report of the Financial Supervisor.
Thanks, Sharon. Do we want to go over the packet first, or do we want to go over the debt first?
Whatever. It's your report, whatever you'd like.
Okay, we'll go over the packet first then.
Okay.
In front of you, you have A, B, C, and D. B did change from what I sent out. We had stuff in the wrong columns. I fixed that yesterday, so you have a more up-to-date one yesterday, or for today. The first one is A. This is the cash position. All these reports are as of May 31st, 2020. There's no negative unexpended balances at this time.
We should use the ones on the table, not the ones we got.
Just B changed.
Just B?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but you have them on your table as well.
All right, give me just a second. All right, I'm with you.
Okay, so A, this is our statement of cash position. All these reports are at the end of May of 2020. There's no negative unexpended balances at this time. Our general fund is at $5 million. The street and state highway, which are both in the recovery plan, are positive. The water fund, which is on page 2 that we have been watching, it is at $1.8 million positive. So at this time, there's no negatives, and the balances are looking pretty good. We'll talk about more about the balances, though, as we go through revenues and expenses. Any questions on A?
Refuse?
Okay, go ahead.
Refuse collections? Did I miss
That's
that?
after encumbrances, so when I say positive, it's the third column from, or it's the third column before you get to the, on the right side, it's positive. Then they have encumbrances, which is making it negative, and the encumbrances, most of the time, they try to cover the whole year. So we concentrate on the unexpended balance at this time. Does that make sense?
So it should be positive at the end of the year?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
B is our revenues. It's the recovery plan revenues versus actual. This is the one that I did update. We were off on lines because we added a new line with the Fund 89 portion income tax in this year's recovery plan. Basically, the 18 million and the 1.8 million that's estimated is overall what the city should collect on income tax. The 89 portion is because of their incentive plans that they have with a couple of companies, the biggest one being Paycor. They move monies out of the general fund income tax into this Fund 89. We have always shown it in the recovery plan. This year it's just separated out so that it's easier to discuss that plus the expenditure side of the world. So really, we expect around $19.8 million in income tax revenues, and then the actual revenues that you see for the income tax is the 7.8 plus the 6. So those together are really the collections for income tax for the year. So as we go through this, our targets at the end of May.
So forgive me.
Yeah.
So the original document, the numbers just don't add?
The recovery plan this year, it's broken out. The recovery plan items in past years were added together and shown on one line.
Right,
This year
so I
it's
understand all that. I'm just trying, is the Fund 89 portion somewhere in what you distributed, or is it just completely omitted, but the total, because the totals are the same, I'm just,
What do you mean the totals are the same? What
well,
totals?
the 24,931,900 remains the same, 24,931,
Yeah.
well, 600, a little bit different.
Just add it to the other column down at the bottom.
Are you
it's-
comparing the one I sent out before compared to the
Yeah,
one now?
that's what I'm trying to
Don't
do.
do that.
Yeah, okay,
That will
just-
confuse you because
okay,
it's off
that's right.
lines from there on down.
Good, okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's why you have a new one. Okay. All right. At the end of May, the target should be 42% or more collected, more being what we'd want. We don't really want less overall. The general fund is at 44.44% collected, so it is above target at this time. Income tax would be the one that we're really watching throughout this whole entire year. I'm actually getting reports from the treasurer's office more than monthly to see where collections are. Filing deadline has been moved for the city from April to July, so we will have some timing differences when you compare last year and all the years before to this year, just like most of the state's going to have, because the state has even moved theirs. So it's in line with how the rest of the state is going. Because of that and where we're looking at right now, they look to be trending really well with income tax. A lot of places that we've talked to, they said probably July or August we would start seeing what really the pandemic was going to be doing. We can't guess at this time. That's why we're watching this extremely closely, not only here but other places. Property tax is over half collected, but you just got your first half. It should be over 50% because you normally do get over 50% in the first half because people pay ahead. You will get the second half more towards September, October, so that percentage is not going to change for a while. So, but now we went through April, May, and we've had our first collection. Some of these other ones are a little lower than we'd like them to be right now. Again, the biggest ones for the general fund are income tax and property tax. So we're watching those extremely closely. Are we not watching these other ones? No, we're watching them as well. I will tell you though, what we talk about in past history, recreation normally doesn't have monies coming in until June, July, and August. Why? The pool is the biggest one that comes to play. Did they open the pool? Yes. Will the pool stay open? That's, depends on how everything goes with COVID-19. At this time, it is. So normally for charges for services, that would be a little lower than the targeted amount because we're looking to collect more of those revenues in the summertime. We're going to be watching where the recreation department lands because, and I asked the mayor in an email how things were going, and some of the recreation is not up and going, but the pool is definitely the biggest money bringing in for the city in that area. Building department also falls into here. Yes, the permits were not being let out like they were. It had a lot to do with COVID-19. They're starting to see some things pick up. Definitely another area we'll be watching to see how that turns around during the summertime. The big one down under other, they did receive their BWC refund. We do not normally allow them to put that in the recovery plan as an estimate. Why? Because we don't know for sure if they'll get it every year. Have they gotten it for the last several years? Yes, every entity pretty much has, but that's not something we want to count on when we're building a recovery plan. That's why that one is so much larger against the estimate versus the actual in a positive way. That's very good conservative planning, and that's how we like them to present that.
What's the period the refund's related to?
The prior year.
So that would be the period ending June 30th, 2019?
No, it's December, is it not?
It's based on their year, or is it based on the state?
Paid in last year,
Yeah.
but it's on the calendar year.
Okay.
It's on the calendar year. Okay. So 12/31/19.
Yeah, they just got them in February or March,
Okay.
so.
And they actually distributed those ahead of schedule due to COVID. Because typically you don't get those till later this summer.
That's all I had on the general fund at this time. Is there any other questions, concerns? I am happy to see that income tax is projecting fairly well right now and where it needs to be. That's a good sign for the city.
The only other point I'd make is Mayor's Court was closed down for a few months there too, so we didn't have much coming in from that either, so.
Yeah.
It is open again and operational. So
Is that fines and forfeitures?
yes.
Yes. The other two funds on here are the street construction and repair and the state highway. Again, overall, they're above the 42% in collections, mainly due to the gas tax and the MVL, which is the bulk of the revenues that are in there. So we'll see how that trends also going forward with the amount of travel that was really reduced in the March, April, May time periods. So I think the collections in the next 3 months will really tell us where that hit will be.
What's the last tax collection date? Since everything was pushed back? Is it still 10/15 or is it for the extensions?
Income tax or?
Oh, they would extend beyond July 15th, or,
Yeah, July 15th.
Well, typically you file 4/15 and then you get an extension, you can get another extension to pay as late as 10/15. So I don't know, federally speaking, if that was pushed back to 10/15 or if that's,
I don't know. That's
That
a
I
good
don't know.
question.
Any other questions about revenues at this time? And I apologize, I had to give you a new one this morning. Okay, then C is the expenditure side of the world. Pages 1 through 7 are the general fund. Again, this is through May. We want to see things at 42% or less expended. Anything above that, then I'm going to talk about by department or fund and tell you why they're over at this time. Now, let's remember, I'm going to put this out front, we have a lot of things that we pay for the whole year in January and February. We still had to do that this year. That throws off the percentages. Is the budget and the recovery plan built to have those expenditures paid for? Yes. I'm just taking strictly 5 over 12 to get 42% and see where we are as a base percentage to kind of gauge where we are. The other thing is, they pay 2 health insurances in January. That's not uncommon to catch back up because they normally don't pay one in December. Therefore, they've already paid 6 out of 12 for health insurance, which also will throw some things out. May was also a 3-pay month. When we do payrolls, it's 26, not 24, because we pay bi-weekly here, not 2 times a month. That will also throw some of these departments out, and I'll tell you that when we get to them. Okay, so on the first page, Clerk of Council, that one exceeded a little bit. This is one of those that they paid some contractual services, and they've had a lot of things going on, and the advertisement fees, they've had a lot of that being paid up front. They've had a lot of ordinances they've had to put out there and be shown in the newspaper as required by the Ohio Revised Code. Page 2, the Auditor's Office. In here, we moved this last year in the recovery plan, and it's in here again. They have to show audit expenditures here. They also show county settlement expenditures. So when they get their property taxes, they have to post it gross. So they post the entire amount of property taxes within the general fund, and then there's deductions on the settlement sheets for county auditor and treasurer fees that are required. So we've paid half of that already, and it's really like 53 to 54% we've already paid for that. That really throws this out a little bit when you look at it, and that's the reason why there. You'll see a bigger amount of expenditures from the property tax settlement in the first half than you will in the second half. Service Director's Office, we had 2 individuals leave that office in the beginning of the year, and we've brought in new, and there was a payout for their leave. So it was built in, but we saw a huge hit in, I think it was February, January for that payout. That, again, we'll throw those percentages out, but it's covered. Page 3. Police Administration, we have the 3-month pay here that's throwing some things out, and then also 6 months of the health insurance. Police Crime and Control, the same thing, but we've also paid out clothing allowance. That's built in, but it's a one-time payment that was paid in April. That will also throw our percentages out as well. So it's covered, but it's just a timing issue of what we're trying to compare. Page 4, Fire Department. They had the same things with the health insurance, they had the clothing allowance, but they also had a lease that was paid. It was due in the first part of the year. That will also throw out some of those percentages. They also purchased their vehicle, the truck vehicle that was in the recovery plan at $42,000. They actually paid around $35,000 for that. So we saw a little savings there compared to what was estimated. So with that being purchased in the front part, we're at 5 months. That's really going to change things. Yeah. City Garage. Again, this is really because of the 6 months. Health insurance. They also had a debt payment in here, a half of a debt payment. And then they have they usually buy a lot of their supplies in the front half of the year, so they have them in the winter months and going into the summer. So a lot of those have been purchased as well. Page 5 was a boo-boo on printing. Page 6, Health Medicare Services Department. We had an unexpected severance in there. Now, this was not budgeted for, but it is a requirement to pay out. This is something we'll have to do on movement of appropriations and stuff between what we already have appropriated in other departments. And we'll be working with the city to do that. The Health Environmental, again, this is really because it's a very small department. Those 3 pay month of May and the 6-month health insurance is really what's causing that percentage to look out. Page 7, Retirees Benefit Program. This has been paid in full. There's no more payments to this. So it should be 100% expended or a little less, depending if somebody did not meet the requirements. So they did, that's paid. Retirees Health Care, This is on its last leg. They made that change at the end of 18 to be effective coming into 19 and 20, so these are the last of the payouts, so we shouldn't see many more of this either. The debt service, the biggest part is paid in the first half of the year. Only interest is left to be paid later on, and they're scheduled for those payments. Overall, at the bottom of page 7, you see the general fund is at 39.62% expended at this time at the end of May, which is below the target of 42, which is what we would like to see at this time.
That's great.
May we hear a little bit about some of the dramatic underages?
Like,
Community development, page 4,
Page 4,
bottom.
for instance.
Yeah, that's 1.
community development, the mayor can help with this as well, but or in the gym, I believe that this is a new department for this year, and that this one was going to have a hiring in. I think we were basing that off of June. We are just through the end of May, so no expenditures at this time for it. I don't know where they stand on the hiring, if that's, either one of them would have to answer that question.
I can answer that question. We've looked at multiple different people for the position, but an economic or community development director is typically a 6-figure job, and we have not been able to find the right fit for that position right now. We are looking at an alternative of potentially bringing on HCDC under contract, the Hamilton County Development Corp, under contract, and to get us through probably the first year and really figure out if we just underestimated the amount that we should have put in for a good economic development director. So that's sort of where we stand right now. We do have the executive assistant to the mayor is working on economic development and reaching out to businesses and sort of carrying the torch, but it's not, it's not the situation we'd like to have.
Who did most of that legwork before? If at all?
Jerry Stoker was a part-time person that worked in the previous administration on those things.
Including building development and those things? Or, I know Mr. Stoker, and didn't he run the housing?
He ran the building, yeah, he ran the building department.
And he did some of this as well?
Yes.
Okay, and this is the job that you were talking about last meeting that you were struggling with because COVID and you couldn't really interview and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
but even the resumes, and I've gotten some really great resumes, but for what we're expecting out of the person and what they expect in salaries is a little bit, it's off. So we've got to really rethink that, how we get that going in the right direction.
How about EMS on that same page, about $70,000 under spend?
I'd have to look at the recovery plan, but I do believe there's some stuff in the capital plan to be spent too. I don't know for sure. Normally, I look at what's exceeding, and then I know that things have changed because of COVID too, and some of the stuff that's been normal hasn't been normal in the expenditure wise. So we'd have to have the recovery plan in front of us too, and I can't remember if they had some capital in there or not.
Okay.
Yes.
Should I not list the rest? Or
You can list, I mean, we
so
may
there's
have to
public lands
research
and
too.
buildings at $425,000 underspend.
That one, there's a
What
lot
page
in the
we on?
recovery
Forgive me,
plan.
page 6.
Okay.
Same page for parks and playgrounds, $160,000 underspend. Page 7, recreation department, $100,000 underspend.
That one, you have a lot more in the summertime because you have all the temporary or the part-timers for lifeguarding. Also, they were looking to do a contract with a company. I will be honest with you, we're going to talk about something else later after this debt thing that will explain what we're doing there. I forget how much that was at one time, but that will not be used, but it's going to be used somewhere else. So that's a big reason for it.
Can I jump in? I mean, realistically, COVID-19 shut down City Hall for 2 months, 3 months. It totally shut down recreation. So we had no expenditures. We weren't even sure if we were going to be able to get the swimming pool open this year. So we were looking at some different options there, and she's alluding to the fact that we were looking at potentially utilizing a management service for the pool, for the swimming pool operation this year, which didn't work out, and the swimming pool's operating, we're doing fine, but even some of the projects, quite a few of the projects have been delayed because of the timing of COVID-19, being able to even get somebody to answer the telephone. A lot of businesses just basically shut down and closed and sent everybody home. So there's a lot of the plans that we had in place for improvements, public lands and buildings and different improvements, are really just starting to get signed. The contracts are just now getting started. The roofing on the firehouse has just started. Some of the pavement work that we're going to do is just getting started and just getting to the contract phase. So it has pushed, for all of our great plans and all the progress we were going to make in the first 6 months, it's pushed them back 3 months, at least.
Good. I would love, when we get together again, to also hear about the dramatic underages. Obviously not every underage, but maybe the half dozen largest underages. Could be that we're discovering that our budget was way off, impractical, something unnecessary. But we also might learn something that, hey, here's a great opportunity. We thought we needed something and we don't. Be just worth.
If you guys have, we can send out a copy of the recovery plan. Technically, if you would look at that versus this, it has it more in detail. It would also help in that. And the capital plan was much larger this year and in the next 5 years, to be honest, because there were some things that weren't done in the prior year, and then they were doing catch up and then some other stuff as well. I think if you have that in front of you, that would help with, it would help with, here's the big reason why from the capital plan itself. But we can go over those as well.
Yeah, and so just add 6 or so comments to this meeting about the most significant underages.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions on the general fund? Okay, the last page is the street and state highway. We show this in total by the fund. It doesn't have departments. They're working, he's already alluded to, on projects. Some are backed up, some are being worked on. You're seeing some work done in the state highway area, but the street area, we're trying to do some timing things there. So I would foresee us having more expenditures come into play in these funds in the next couple of months. So, but that's where we stand with those at this time. Any other questions about expenditures? D is the bank reconciliation. Again, that shows you all the bank statements that they have and the outstanding, or the adjustments that you have, whether it's deposits, transit, or outstanding checks. The reconciling items are dwindling down. We're still working with them on this, but it's much easier for me to come down and work with them in person, and it's really hard to do that away. We made some great strides before this went down on finding some things and errors between the two departments of the treasurer's office and the auditor's office. The treasurer does the banking side, the auditor's office does the booking side. Sometimes you have to get both parties at the table to figure some of this out, and some are still, but we're still trying to make progress, and once we can come down here on a more consistent basis in person, we'll make some more strides in that area, but it is less than it has been. Okay, any questions about the packets, that packet? Okay, the next thing that we have is the debt. I think Sharon has a resolution for this as well. This was done in the recovery plan and was outlined in the capital plan of the recovery plan. It is for a new fire apparatus. You have the ordinance that was passed by the council, and then you also have the interest rates, how much they're borrowing in the lease option. This does fit into the recovery plan. Going forward, this has been approved by them, and now we need to approve it by the commission. That's a requirement. Is there any questions about this going forward?
So is this a capital lease, or is this a lease, or
It's capital lease.
capital lease? Okay. And what do we do as far as shopping the debt around?
I will allow them to answer that one, either the mayor or Jim.
I think it's like,
Jim might have more information on,
Yeah, I was just curious
The
who we
lease
talked to, what
setup
other
of
rates
the-
we saw, yada, yada, yada.
this
No,
one.
this was set up through the Safety Service Director and the Fire Department before it came to us. Within the fiscal emergency plan, we did build in a top of 7% interest, and so the I think it's 3.06 that's here fits well within that. But my office did not shop this lease around.
Jim,
When was this deal presented? Like, how long ago?
The fire department's been working on it for a while now. They
Yeah, I'm
actually
just
started
wondering-
last
I guess
year.
what I'm
I do
getting
know
to
that
is,
much.
in the economic environment,
Can we get the chief's comments on this? Because he's got all the background on it.
yeah, I just want to see, like, with the economic changes that have occurred, you know, because of COVID, obviously interest rates have dropped. Is this deal as good of a deal as we could get today? And just, I'm not saying it's not, I'm just saying,
Could be an opportunity.
how dated is the deal, and does it reflect the current economic circumstances?
So I can comment that we're kind of stuck with having to get things done to council first, then to your approval. So I think that was passed at the meeting at the beginning of May, Council President?
Yes.
So it's fairly current.
Okay, so like when we got the deal, when you got the deal, that was like April?
Well, we've been working on this for probably 24 months. We tried to get this in front of you last year because of the labor situation. It wouldn't be allowed, and wouldn't be prudent.
Yeah,
Expenditure there. So we've been working on it for a long time.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if we, you know, if we took a look right now, today, is there a deal at 2.5% or something that, I know it's kind of last minute, probably bad timing on my part, but
So I don't believe, I mean, it authorizes us to enter into an agreement. I don't think the interest rate's set per se. But I know the application for the financing was just completed.
Right, and one other issue with this is that this deal was, the purchase price of the vehicle was based on estimates really gotten last year. And the deadline for us entering into this agreement was in May. And June 1st, their prices go up, like $60,000, I believe. And so we worked with them, or really the fire department worked with them and finance committee and said, look, you know, can we extend this deadline and keep this bid at the current level and not get that $60,000 increase in the cost because we're waiting for the Fiscal Emergency Commission to meet to approve this debt. So we are making savings by not delaying this further and trying to get a little lower interest rate because we're trying, and even if we're paying a little higher in interest, our principal's much lower because we're getting a better deal by taking the interest rate that they projected when they put this through last month, if that makes sense to you.
it does. So you'd be, if you waited, dilly-dallied, you might be on the hook for another 60.
Yeah, we might be able to get a better interest rate now because of COVID, but we would be paying more for the vehicle total
Right.
cost.
Is it too late to run an amortization table that says, all right, if I factor that 60 grand in, what is my effective rate as if I would have incurred the 60?
To be honest with you, because of how government works, I mean, we have to have, you can do debt, like, let's talk about bond, okay, which is a much bigger deal. So when we take a bond, we say, this is what we're gonna have to go and borrow. And then we usually go, what's the market look like on interest rate? And a lot of times those resolutions say you can only, it's approved, go ahead and do this, up to a certain amount of interest rate. So you can go up to this amount, but if they go over that, you can't let that go through.
Right.
Because that changes on a daily basis with the bond market, right?
Right.
So the interest rate fluctuates a lot more there. So you don't know when you pass it at city council, that it's going to be at the same rent interest rate they told you that day when you go to actually finalize everything.
Sure.
So you have to do a range of stuff.
Sure.
Okay, so lease is kind of similar in that aspect as well. We have a timing issue here. It has to be approved before you can go into the agreement. And they are kind of strapped because it has to go through 2 approvals with being in fiscal emergency. They have to pass it through city council first at the rate, an interest rate, and an amount. So they can't go over 3.09. My biggest question to all the departments was, is that interest rate fixed and they're going to give it to you, or it will be lower once we get to writing our names on the paper? Yes, they have said, yes, that's the interest rate you're going to get up until whatever date that the fire department had gotten. That was a huge question on my part before I said, okay, let it go to council for the resolution to be passed as their supervisor. So then they have to do that. Really supposed to be 3 readings. I believe they did 3 or 2, I forget.
We had first and second reading on May the 12th, and then we had the third reading on the 26th.
So they did protocol. I mean, they did 2 readings in 1, but they still followed protocol there. Then it has to come to us for that as well. If they would go and do anything now, we would have to start over, technically. Because if the principal changes and the interest, now does it fit within the recovery plan that we have already passed? And if it doesn't, then do we have to then relook at the recovery plan? And it's not just that section, it's the whole thing.
Right.
So that's kind of where they stand. And I understand what you're asking and the savings cost of that, but there's a lot of things that they have to do to get it to
get to this point.
Sign, yeah.
Yeah, no. Well, I guess as an alternative, can somebody just run an amortization table factoring the 60 to give us kind of what it would have been if we maybe took another look at it, just for comparative purposes, just for information purposes? Is that reasonable?
Sharon?
Does that make sense?
It does, but I guess, does that mean waiting on
No.
passing the resolution?
No, not at all.
Okay,
Just
just for informational purposes.
Post-deal information to say, well, really, and I think it would be a positive. Okay, we're at 309, but if we would have waited another month, say we got to 275, compare that to the 60 grand more we'd be paying, to kind of give us some comfort that this was a good decision after the fact, and kind of give us something to look at.
I can't do it, so I'm not going to offer
Yeah, I mean, it's...
anybody's services.
It's really just playing with the interest rate to say, all right, you know, I mean, if it's not a big deal, I just would like to, I'm curious to see that information.
Okay. Well, we can see what we can do with that.
Jim, is that, I mean,
Yeah.
pretty straightforward?
Sure.
Okay.
The only, I guess when I looked
No
at...
rush, I mean, I'm just
Okay.
like to know.
Okay. I guess when I looked at this, here's the things I was looking for. It was a cooperative purchasing program, which means that that's their job to find their members the best deal that they can at the time. So that was a good thing that I saw. I also saw the fact that it wasn't over a long period of time, as amortized, probably the life of the capital investment. It's set, so we know how much, and it actually, I believe, came in lower than what the recovery plan had estimated the payments to be. So I thought that was a win-win. As far as the interest rate is concerned, if you compare a city's purchasing power as maybe compared to, well, let's take for instance mortgages. I'm looking at refinancing because the rates are dropping like crazy. However, and in that case, well, if I default, they just get the house. And it's pretty much it's a gamble, but it's worth it to the banks at this point. But from the city's viewpoint, they rely on the economics of their citizens. So that's why we're looking at the income tax revenues coming in and property taxes and so on and the fees. Because people are also struggling with job opportunities, and their revenues coming from income taxes may decrease, which actually, and it's not just I mean, it's just countrywide. So in all actuality, I would say that lending money to a city might be very risky and may come at a higher interest cost. I don't know.
Totally agree. We don't have the highest credit rating on the street. I realize that, so.
But I mean, just anybody, just given the times.
Sure.
Well, we can see.
No, I mean, I'm totally for it. I mean, I'm not saying no or fighting against it or saying it's not a good deal.
Okay. You're just doing what you would do with your own.
I'm doing what I always do, and I
Housekeeping,
question, it could be 0%, and I'd say, is that low enough? You know, I mean, so.
Yeah, I get you.
That's what I get paid to do, and, just question to make sure that things have been considered, and I'm sure they have.
Sound good.
That's it.
Okay. Is there any other questions on the lease? Okay, I do have a resolution. It has basically spelled out, you've been in fiscal emergency declared since October 6, 2016. We have been created to assist in the restoration of fiscal integrity of the city. We are required as a commission to approve the amount and purpose of any issuance of debt obligations entered into by the city. City has presented the commission with a request to enter into this lease purchase agreement of a 2021 Seagrave fire engine. And it also includes the construction, delivery, lettering, participation fee, intakes, and stuff I have no idea what it is, but it is important to a fire engine. Without an expected building and outfitting time of 1 year. So that's something else. They're not going to get this right away. It takes custom built. It also names on this resolution that they have entered into an agreement with Republic First National, which was attached, which was also given to you in your materials. First lease payment due is not until May of 2021, and they will be in equal payments. And whereas the lease purchase of a fire engine was included in the City of Norwood's capital improvement plan, submitted as a part of the City of Norwood's financial recovery plan, approved by the Financial Planning and Supervision Commission for the City of Norwood on March 31st, 2020. And then this is therefore be it resolved, the commission duly approves the purchase of the 2021 Seagrave fire engine. May I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Mayor Schneider moves. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Miracle seconds. On a voice vote, or excuse me, on a roll call vote, Mayor Schneider.
Yes.
Council President Miracle.
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz.
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd.
Yes.
Mr. Vonderhaar is not here. And I will have to change that. That's one I didn't. Mr. Quinlan.
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Hanrahan. Yes. Okay, we have approved.
And I have one last thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, also, it came to us for approval. The city is in need of a ladder truck now. It was built into the recovery plan, I believe, to start that work out and possibly have it by 2021, 2022, something like that. It's a very old ladder truck. I believe it's a 1999, six. So the repairs to it right now are very costly. Some repairs probably won't be able to be done because of parts and stuff. I have talked to the fire chief about this in past months, even last year some. They were able to work out a deal with the city of Cincinnati, I believe, to purchase a used truck from them at a cost now which I believe is it $80,000? And have a ladder truck that would be functional for what they estimate for 10 years. A ladder truck is way more expensive, new. We were looking to finance one in 2021, 2022 in the recovery plan. So this would be, it was a slight change. However, at $80,000 plus there is around $10,000 also that needed to be done to help change some things on their outfit, whatever that is, because my biggest question was what else is there besides that initial cost to the city of Cincinnati. They wanted to purchase this outright from them as used, and not go through financing, so therefore we wouldn't have interest rate costs that we originally thought we would have in future years, at least, and it goes past our 5 years of the financial recovery plan, because it should last at least 10 years from what they have been told and what I've been told. So with that being said, it was a deal that they kind of needed to take, or some other city or municipality could have gotten it from the city of Cincinnati. We talked about, well, that's okay, but we are kind of stuck with the recovery plan expenditures as is in the general fund. Where would this be coming from? What are you going to get rid of? And really it was a fairly easy discussion because we've already talked about this. Recreation is not doing the contracted work. I think that was around $120,000 estimate within the recovery plan. We're looking at $90,000 worth of cost to do this instead. So we allowed for the city to do an appropriation change of subtracting $90,000 of the budget from the recreation department, the general fund, and adding it to the fire department to make this purchase. Again, we do not have interest rate. And if it does last even 8 years to 10 years, you won't have that interest rate cost that we were projecting in future years. So that is a savings. Also, going with the used for now, we don't have the cost of what a new would be. And there is a need in this community for a ladder truck. I think it was last year, I think that you had the apartment or something fire there. They did have to have the ladder to put it out. We did approve that through our office, and I'm just making you aware of that going forward, that we did make sure that it was, you're not going to spend it here, but you have it to spend there, and the need was there, and the finances made sense. So if there's any other questions on that, I know they talked about this extensively within the city and at the council meetings as well. So the mayor, Ken or Jim can answer any more questions you would have. Did I give it justice, though? Okay.
So, I mean, we're replacing a ladder truck, and they're huge. We're replacing it with a used vehicle that Cincinnati took offline because, quite frankly, their purchasing department purchased vehicles that were too big to fit in half of their firehouses, so they took it out of service. The chief and one of the officers went and checked it out, and it fits our need. It's quite frankly a good purchase for us, and will work out well, I think. For whether it's 5 years or whether it's 10 years, I'd prefer it be 5 years or so before, but we're going to want to look and make plans for that, because it's a huge expense. This used vehicle was listed, they had it actually on the auction website for $100,000. But if you look online, they're about $250,000 for the year that we're getting. And we worked a deal with Cincinnati to get this for $80,000. So it's absolutely a win-win for the city.
I think it's outstanding. Sounds great, very fortuitous. What year is the vehicle we're buying?
I think it's a 2009.
Yes, sir.
And what would we expect? 20 years on a ladder truck?
I think the standard is 25, but we try to do 20.
So the standard is actually 20 years frontline service, 5 years reserve, mandatory retirement, 25 years. So this is really a stopgap for us.
So we could get 10 or more?
9 at this point. Obviously.
Out to 25?
Well, out to 25, yes.
Okay.
One of the things you need to understand is this is not designed for Norwood. We are significantly reducing our ground ladder capacity with this. It's just a reality. we're going to lose out on approximately 65 feet of ground ladders, which is really important for us.
So our current ladder truck gets us 65 feet higher than this one?
Don't think in terms of the big ladder on top. Think about the ground ladders that are stored inside of it.
Got it.
About 200 foot capacity on our current ones out of service. The next one we will purchase is spec for about 230 feet of ground ladders. The one we're getting is about 145 feet of ground ladders. That's just capacity, just because it's not designed for us. And the reality is, when Cincinnati has fires, they have multiples of those showing up, and we have one.
Got it.
It's critical for us.
Does this, taking this money out of the recreation fund, cause any additional risk to that fund?
Well, it's a department in the general fund. So no, because we still built, that was the potential of what they wanted to look at this year. We had already built in the normal payrolls in there anyways. This was supposed to be a year to see if we went that way, would that be the way that the city would go in the future. So no, it won't hurt that department, and especially since a lot of the other things have not been able to be put in play other than the swimming pool. At this time, I do not feel that way. Otherwise, I wouldn't have approved
So
it.
we had some cushion in there because we were thinking of getting a management company to
Yes.
run that, and we had the money in there for the employees to be
Yes.
paid? Okay. But that won't hurt any other recreation opportunities or?
Not at this time.
I can. When we were putting the fiscal emergency plan together, working with the mayor in March, we had gotten bids on having a contractual firm to come in to run the pool, and the decision had not yet been made as to whether that would be a viable plan for this year. So we chose to leave both the costs of us running the pool and the contractual for this year until that decision was made. So we always kind of expected to have not to meet the full expenditures, meet the full amount that was appropriated due to that reason. So that really, us not having that company come in, there was enough to run the recreation for the full year plus an additional $120,000.
Correct.
Great.
That's all I have,
Yeah,
Sharon.
I really, the only thing I would ask is next time we meet, is that if we just reflect that in their capital plan, that's all.
Okay.
Just update the plan.
Just the capital
Because
plan?
it doesn't, just the capital plan.
So we're not looking for any, there's no action by this commission required.
They were able to move appropriations, and it's still within the recovery plan overall, and we've done that before. There was no debt instrument either. That would have had to have come here before they could even have done anything, so that didn't have to be approved by the commission. We can definitely do an update to the capital plan.
Yeah, why don't we do that, and just, that way we've got something in front of us that replaces the capital, so that it sort of memorializes that we did agree. I mean, we were notified of the change, agreed
Good.
that it was a sound decision, and go from there. And it didn't, if anything, it will reduce expenditures in the out years,
Yeah.
which probably, I mean, I think is the way to go. The state is looking at, 20 and 21 are going to be rough, but 22 and 23 may be even harder. So the less that you have out in the out years, I think, is a good thing.
Was that a general economy statement?
I think it's just basic, yeah, the economy, and just basically the way the taxes come in. We're not seeing the true effect of COVID now in the revenues we're getting in. There's a delayed reaction, and we will be seeing that.
Okay.
And as we spend reserves, we run out of reserves, and then, the music stops and we have no chair to sit in.
So that was more of a government financing comment?
Yeah.
Got it.
What happens to the truck, the $80,000 truck in 2 years when we have the new shiny truck? Will they just work in conjunction, or we'll just be in good shape truck-wise, or?
Different trucks, right?
Right, they're different checks, so
Yeah,
they were
but I
two
mean,
different
are you gonna have
needs.
use for both of
Yes.
them on a consistent basis, and we'll
Yeah,
get our kind
the
of,
new one's gonna replace an old one, and this one is replacing another, I mean, it's not
so
like,
there's two we're replacing?
You're talking an engine or a ladder?
they got engine with
Purchasing an
ladders, yeah.
engine. A pumper is different than the ladder
Yeah.
truck.
All right,
Which one are you talking about, Brad?
sure.
So he's talking about the new
No,
one?
I'm just saying,
that
we're
we just
buying
did
one
a
truck,
bid.
we're buying another truck. You're telling me that they're different,
Yes,
and that they'll serve two different purposes, and we'll have good use of both of them?
yes.
Other than that, I trust the fire department.
Any other questions for Anna Mary? No? Okay. The only thing I have for old business, new business, and that is if I can find it, I neglected to present this last time we met in my excitement over the recovery plan. But this is an engagement letter, and this is something that is done professionally. Attorneys will have an engagement letter spelling out what services will be provided and what those services will cost. This is the same thing. These come out every year, and it does spell out that, some of the oversight services that you already have enjoyed. They will analyze the city's revenues, review the city's tax budget, appropriations, and amended certificate of estimated resources to ensure consistency with financial recovery plan. They'll review the recovery plan, monitor the city monthly to ensure compliance with the appropriation budget and the financial recovery plan, provide guidance in the preparation of a 5-year financial forecast for the major operating funds of the year, which we require at least yearly because we'll be doing an update every year to the financial recovery plan.
I'm sorry, would you mind going to one rung higher on the ladder and tell us what we're talking about?
Oh, this is the engagement letter from the state auditor's office
Okay.
to the city of Norwood and the commission actually, that just explains what services that the office will be providing and the cost of the
So this is
services.
your office?
No, that's my office.
Your
That's
office.
their office.
Do we have a
Correct.
copy of this?
No,
Okay.
but I can get a
Okay.
copy for you.
I'll stop looking.
Okay, I will get a copy. Yeah,
You threw me there, I didn't know if I.
yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah,
That
that's
was
all
one
right.
I was at work
Yeah.
yesterday and I neglected to make a
No worries.
copy of that. Getting to the bottom line, because I think, and another thing that we talked about was the report on accounting methods. They'll assist in correction of the issues that are addressed in that report. They prepared it. They provide training and assistance in the maintenance of accounting ledgers, so on and so forth. I think one of the things now is the discussion on how to account for maybe the COVID funding.
Yeah, I know, Jim said that they were getting some, and then he's going to send me information on that, and I'll have to run it through, because we're still dealing with how we account for certain stuff, and so we run it through the chain to see what they get and how they should record it.
So it's ongoing. The way the statute reads is that, is it 2 or 3 years? 2 years, their services are free. And that's where primarily most of the work happens. It's that report on accounting methods. It's, it varies depending on the situation. They're, working with balancing the bank statement, bank reconciliation. In some cases, it's trying to assemble records from receipts and stuff in a desk. So it does vary depending on the complexity and the know-how, I think, of the city. And, you know, we're talking, in some cases, we're talking villages that have an elected fiscal officer who did it and ran because no one else would. So it varies. But anyway, getting to what you really want to hear is how much is it going to cost? Cost of the services, which is from the city's fiscal year, January 1st through December 31st of 2020, is not anticipated to exceed $50,000 and will be billed to the city at a rate of $50 per hour. That 50 is the ceiling, and they do a great job of overestimating that just so that they don't have to, they don't want to underestimate because we'll need another engagement letter. But in my experience, the not to exceed is rarely reached.
Have we paid that previously?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we paid that starting in 2019, I guess, based on when we started?
Yeah.
October
and
2016 plus 2 years?
I believe the rate per hour has remained the same.
50.
But the statute has got it prorated, so like the first year after, it's, I don't know if it's 20, I don't have the statute in front of me, but the longer you're in, the more it goes up, like what share the city pays, until you're at a point where it's 100%. So.
Any idea what the percentage is at this point?
It's 100.
He has to pay it all.
It is? Okay.
It's 100% now, up to 50. Okay.
Feels like money well spent to me.
Yeah.
But then it's also another savings you'll see as soon as you get out of fiscal emergency, so. Kind of like that car payment you've been paying, and then all of a sudden it's paid off, and you put it in the bank, theoretically, or really. So, okay. So I will sign that on behalf of the commission, and then I'm going to have Jim also has to sign it certifying that the amount required to pay the contract has been appropriated and so on. So, and then we will get that back to Anna Mary, who will get it back to Dave.
And that full amount was built into the fiscal emergency plan.
Yep.
Just out of curiosity, who tracks that, like the hours and the max and all those things? Is it Jim or them or?
Well, Jim has a purchase order for the amount, but we track the hours, and we can't bill past that 50,000
Then you just submit an invoice every month or week or something?
every month.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any old new business?
I'd like to follow up on the accounting
Yeah,
procedures.
I forgot that part.
What's that?
I said I have it and I totally forgot about it.
That's okay, just a quick verbal maybe, if
Yeah.
things are going well, we're making
Yes.
progress.
Council President Miracle has been spearheading things at the city level and getting us some things. I did receive several procedures and policies here lately, mostly from the city auditor's office. We're in the stages, we got to review them and give them some changes that we'd like to see before we consider them good to go. We do have one cleared because there was one under payroll to have your union contracts updated. Okay, so those have been updated. I can clear that comment. Other than that, we have some that are in progress. A lot of them, though, like if we have to see if they're doing blank or Then and now certifications, where the purchase order is after the invoice. We have seen some of those, and they are following how you're supposed to do it in the Ohio Revised Code. $3,000 or more has to be approved by council. Anything less than $3,000, it can just be approved by Jim saying that, yes, the monies was there, and we can move on. I have copies of those that they have done, but we continue to monitor that as we go, so I probably wouldn't consider that clear until we're ready to come out, but we are monitoring as we go. So I have received several policies and procedures, but we're in the review process, and then we'll be talking to them about what we would like to see changed before we would consider it.
And what is the monitoring period once you make the changes and implement them? Are they monitored for a certain
Okay, so
amount of time?
Okay, so part of the coming out of fiscal, and I think that's a lot of reasons why Ken has really spearheaded this, is one, you have to have all of the emergency out. There's 6 conditions. You can't be meeting any of those.
Right.
You can't even be meeting fiscal watch. There's another, that's more downgraded. You can't be meeting fiscal caution. That's the third. That's all the levels there. So there's one. And then we test all those steps. Number 2, you have to have a recovery plan that shows you in the positives going forward, and we do have that. We can't ask for any of that until a year end, when we were in negotiation upheaval for a long time, and now we have that in play and a stronger recovery plan. The third thing you have to do is all those comments that were in the report on accounting methods really should be cleared completely before you come out. So as we are going through this year, we're going to try to get them into progress and then finalize. Some of the things that we'd be watching, like the then and now certificates, I would watch that all the way up until we're in the closing parts of this to make sure that, yes, they are still doing that. There's a lot of things that's a timing thing, so, budget stuff and making sure things are, in line and per the comments that we have. I'm going to continue to watch that as we go. It's possible to get out with not all the comments cleared. You're going to have a lot of them cleared, though. And you're going to have to be in process for all of them, none that aren't even being touched at all. There is at times that you can come out and you would have comments not cleared, then you're monitored for 2 years. However, we don't like to have a separation. We like a divorce, is how I would look at it. If they would get everything cleared, there's nothing remaining, we're not having anything in progress, they would get to divorce us. They can ask for our help and stuff, but we're not in here monitoring. If we do a separation because they still have things that aren't completely what we consider finalized, then they have to still continue to do that and get it done within a 2-year span. If they don't, technically we can bring them back, even if their books are fine. So really, what we're looking for is a divorce.
Right. Our clean separation. Mm-hmm. Oh, clean divorce.
But we're always there. I mean, we have entities that call us.
So if you change a policy for just, I don't know, pick a policy, it's rewritten, it's implemented, how long do you typically watch it after the fact and monitor?
We'll be monitoring the entire time we're here.
Is it 6 months or is it?
Only while we're here, as long as they're following procedure. A lot of it is you have the procedures is a big thing. That's more of a, you need to write something down. If your payroll clerk would get hit by a truck, and it's a very bad example,
Right.
but who else can pick up stuff? You need to have stuff written down so that somebody can pick it up, maybe not at the same pace, but the payroll goes out the door. And so, and I'm not just talking that this entity, all entities really need that. And the amount of lacking in procedures and let alone policies is staggering across the entire state. And so those are not uncommon to have. So that's what we're really looking for the procedures, is a step-by-step thing. If somebody were to get or just go down sick or whatever.
Right, back up.
Yeah, plus being able to have people that know how to do that and work in that area
Sure.
here and there. You don't want to be relying on one person and they're gone and you have no way of doing that.
What about financial stuff, like you mentioned, POs approved after the fact, things like that? I mean, that, I would think that would be more of a specific period of review.
I'm looking at that every so often. Like I look through, I look through the reports monthly, let alone for getting ready for this, meeting that's, every 2 or 3 months or so. And I'm looking to see if anything pops. And then they actually do letterheads in the auditor's office that, either something came in asking for a purchase order, there's not enough budget there, they'll put it on a letter, and that goes out to, I think, City Council, but I also get a copy of that. Or, hey, an invoice came in, and there wasn't enough on the purchase order, and then we need to have, that goes out to the departments as well. So I see that as well, and that's a monitoring process that they have, but then I'm looking to see, okay, so it's been here 2 months, so what are we doing now? And so we're constantly looking at that stuff. The budgetary stuff, we're looking at pretty constantly whenever they need to do a change, and then making sure, we try every 2 months or so to make sure that what's in the actual reports for their system is matching. So, and right now we're going through a change in their accounting system too, so that's going to change some of the processes that they're going to see coming online once that's in play. So a lot of the finance stuff we're looking at least monthly, if not a little more than that, if not in the 2 month span. The policies and procedure stuff, when it comes in, we're looking at that, and then once those are finalized, we're looking to see, okay, is that what you're really doing?
Are we on pace? Are you happy with the pace? Are we on pace for clearing those by the time that the other pieces of this puzzle get?
I'm happy to see
resolved?
that the city is spearheading it, because a lot of times my office has to spearhead the whole
Right.
entire thing, so that they're taking ownership of that, and they're actually going over that, I believe, in council chambers as well, at council
Correct.
meetings.
Yes.
That is a lot of ownership there, so the departments, whoever is supposed to be on top of that, and there's several things the council has to do themselves. They have to approve the policies once our office says, yeah, I like how it's written, otherwise they're approving a policy. I say, no, that doesn't work, and they gotta go rewrite it, and they have to go approve it again. We're trying to cut that part of it out. So I think the ownership that has been taken by the city has been very helpful. I think that we're moving in the right direction, and hopefully, yes, we do have things. I mean, things have slowed down a little bit. We were in the what do we need to get done to survive mode, and not everybody was here, and then getting people back. I think that, we're still dealing with some of that, but I'm liking that the things that I'm seeing coming to me so that we can start reviewing stuff, and then hopefully we can get in here myself in person to see the things I need to see in person.
Do you remember offhand how many comments there were?
34.
Yeah.
That actually sounds like a lot. That's nothing compared to
thinking
some
100.
places.
33 if we talk about, remove that one that
Yeah.
she said we could remove, so it's
That's right,
33.
we're down to
We're doing
33.
better every day.
And actually, many of the things that were listed in there, at least from the auditor's office, were things that we were already doing, but we didn't have a written policy or a procedure for it.
Right.
So when you look back at the dates of us writing those policies, when that was published, within a couple of weeks, we had written the procedure so that we had it in writing, the things we were already doing. We just hadn't gotten to the point of having a solid FRP with a positive balance to be able to move forward on that until fairly recently. That's really the next major step. And, I think we've made a lot of positive movement in the direction of getting this done. We're just waiting now to have the state look at what we've written and make their suggestions and edit them, and then hopefully take a lot of this back to council for the next couple months.
Yeah, I was going to...
Kudos to you guys for spearheading that, because I know that's, having done that and recommending to clients that they need to do that, it's painful, and it's very much a rainy day thing. We've been forced to do it, but 98% of the companies in the world don't have that kind of documentation, and they wish they did, but business comes first. So it's a lot easier for you guys to do that and present that to her than for her team to have to get the names and the specifics. It's just, so great job taking that on.
Well, thank you. We've created an Excel spreadsheet. We've listed them and who's responsible. Like Jim said, he probably gave me, I don't know what, Jim, 10 or so items I've already forwarded to Anna Mary. I'd like to mention also that our treasurer, Mr. Maloney, has also sent many of those to Anna Mary as well. And then in our committee of the whole, I've actually assigned some to our finance committee, and Councilman DiNardo is spearheading those and taking care of that. There's 3 right now, I think, concerning our purchasing policies that he's working on. And I tried to update that report, and I've sent it to Anna Mary in April. And my goal is I have those completed by the end of this year. I believe there are also 18 of the 34 that council has to take action on. So it's a work in progress, and I'll keep you updated as we move forward.
That's great. Thank you.
Any other old, new business? Okay. Mayor?
I'll be brief. I always say that, don't I? A couple of different things. You talk about projects and you talk about, fund balances and there being money sitting in there. Well, I'd like to think that we got a really great start in the first 6 months. But when it comes to projects, we are lagging behind. We had the lull because of the COVID-19 stuff, not being able to get quotes out, not being able to sit down with suppliers, contractors, and getting things done. So we are moving forward on those, and we'll continue to try to take care of all the deferred things that have not happened over the last few years. I recognize there's money sitting there. I also look at streets, and one of the things that we said was we are going to try to leverage every dollar that we have to maximize what we can get out of it. So even grants, when it comes to the grants and comes to state funding of grants, they pretty much closed down too. So all of those processes are even behind, and what we will be able to get and what we won't be able to get are paving plans for Indian Mound and Sheridan and Wakefield up in that area. We're still waiting on some information on actually when the grants went, what we will receive and what we can do there. We had originally said we were going to pave, middle of summer, hopefully, end of summer, latest. It's been pushed back to the fall now, and now we're even looking at it saying, we're not sure we're going to have, unless some people move, it's going to be tough to get that stuff done this year, because we're not going to spend the full amount of money if we can wait a little while and only have to spend half or do a matching for it. So those are things that are a challenge to us right now. We did receive a mini planning grant for Montgomery Road, and that is something that will be extremely helpful as we put, we are really building the foundation of the grant process again for the city of Norwood. We want to be able to apply for a lot of different grants. We want to have, a wide usage of grants to supplement the money that we do. Okay, great, we have some money here, but let's not spend it. Let's not just spend it all as quickly as we can. Let's try to put grants in place and put some plans in place, and that's something we're working on. So, when you talk about overages, I sort of look at it as the mayor's like, we got the money there, we should be spending it. But there are so many hoops to jump through, and there are so many things that need to take place before we can spend that money, and that's good and bad. For me, I'd love to see 6 months worth of January 1st, we made progress every day that you can physically see. But really, a lot of the work that we've been doing is in the accomplishments that we've had have been foundational stuff for what will happen in the future. So we'll continue to work on that type of stuff. They just started. I stopped and took pictures of the fire department's roof. We're getting a new roof put on it. So there's a lot of that stuff going on. And I'll touch base just real quickly on the policies and procedures, because I really want to toot the horn of Jim and Tim Maloney and Keith Moore. So the auditor, the law director, and the treasurer coming together and working on this as a cohesive group to get these policies and procedures in place. We engaged Clemens and Nelson as a contractor, and they put together a draft for us of what a statutory city should have in place. And it's 170 pages. Just the first part of it is 170 pages. And then there's a forms packet, of templates of all the different forms that we should be using. That's like another 150. So these guys are going through that stuff with a fine-tooth comb and really looking at how it applies to the city of Norwood. And it's really refreshing that all 3 of them are working with me to make this happen. And I know you guys patted us on the back a little bit, patted the city, and Ken Miracle driving this thing forward. But as the mayor, it gives me chill bumps to know how well they are all working to get those initiatives that Ken keeps pushing forward on us and keeps guiding and working with us. So, it's really, I can't speak highly enough about the caliber of the people that we have working on these things right now. They're right on it. And it makes my job so much easier because everybody is just so willing to work hard to get this done. So that's all I have. Maybe that wasn't as brief as I meant to be, but I apologize.
Who's doing the roof of the firehouse? Who's the contractor?
Is John sitting behind me? Tom, do you know? I think it's Deer Park Roofing.
No.
Not Deer Park?
Ace Exteriors, I believe.
Okay.
Who?
Ace Exteriors.
I know we had multiple different
Yeah, I'm
bids
just
on
curious.
it.
I used to be in the roofing business, so.
So, a question for you. Have you considered all the capital projects and all the projects that were planned to see if there are any that ought to be intentionally delayed, given what's transpired since we put the plan together?
No, because it seems like, I feel like we just sat down a couple months ago putting these plans together, and we did that exact, we made that exact effort because we were putting together a 5-year plan. So there were many things that we said, no, this needs to be done this year. If we can get this done this year. And there were many, remember, from 2019, there were a lot of things that were in there that didn't happen. So, those are things that are like, well, they were supposed to be done last year. Let's try at least to get them done in 2020. Yeah. So, no, we haven't sat back down and looked at that and said, okay, what else can we push off? I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think things are going to be pushed off because
just naturally.
We can't get them done in the time. We're in the Midwest. We only have a certain period of time to do certain projects, and then the window closes, and you got to wait until next year. So
okay.
Yeah, unless global warming really takes we have the summer much, That's all I have. Thank you.
Ken?
Thank you. I'd like to talk to you about the Rita, Regional Income Tax Agency. Last Thursday evening at the Committee of the Whole, we had a presentation.
Could you speak up a little bit? I have a hard time hearing you.
Sorry. Last Thursday, we had Rita here. Actually, there was a Zoom meeting, so they were here electronically. But if you'll remember back in February, I think I told you that I had contacted them and was talking to them. They had sent us one of their probably their stock presentations where I think they told us it was 3% of the total tax collected. But I'd like to thank Mr. Maloney for filling out the Rita estimate worksheet, which they asked us to do, which gave us a much clearer picture, which I gave you guys a copy of that. And now their estimate is 1.48% to 1.63% of the total collection. While they were here, we had several questions by council members that we have submitted to Rita. I know that Mayor Schneider had questions as well that have been submitted. Some questions I've gotten the answers back, others I haven't. I expect to have those by, she told me by Wednesday, so I'm hoping today that we can get those. And once I have the list of questions and answers, I'll submit not only to council, but I'll forward to you as well. And if you recall on the presentation, the next to last page were the next steps. Certainly, we have questions that we have to answer and get and get the we have to ask and get the answers to those questions. And then I think it's page 26 tells you what the next steps are to move forward. I think that Angela did tell us that it was a 6-month process to conversion process to this. So we're moving a little further down the road with this project. And as I get those answers, I'll get them back to everyone. Any questions about Rita that I can answer for you? If I know the answer?
Yeah, just curiosity on the estimate worksheet. What could you define individual account, net profit account, and withholding account for me, please? Upper right corner.
Are you talking about the numbers that were written in there?
Yeah, and I'm wondering what those represent.
I met with Mr. Maloney last week, and he told me that those are the total number of individual accounts that we have in the
So
city.
that would be individual taxpayers.
Correct.
And then the net profit accounts represent businesses?
Yes,
And then what's the withholding? Are those employees?
employees.
So an employee could also be an individual account?
Correct.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
This would be the breakdown of the 19.6 that's above it and how that's collected. Should be.
Right.
Right.
So the withholding, that's a payroll tax, not an income tax?
It's based off the income tax in the city and the people. It would be from the businesses within the city, and they charge the income tax to those who work within the city, and then that's sent over as a withholding. That's where that's coming from.
Yes.
Okay. So a withholding account would be a business that employs people?
It's the employees of a business.
It's employees of the business.
So if an employee lived in Cincinnati, but they worked in Norwood, that would
Okay.
be the withholding that they would do for that person.
And the net profit account is a business? There are 6,000 businesses in Norwood?
6,251, that's what Mr. Maloney had written down. I can certainly follow up with him on that. I'll do that.
It probably doesn't matter. These are they're just very interesting numbers. Doesn't seem like 6,899 out-of-city employees for 6,251 businesses. Just, it's not much more than curiosity, but I am
I'll get a
curious.
clarification for you.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the idea of Rita. I think, it's right and just that people pay what they owe, and it's beneficial to the city to get paid, increase our revenue. That could make all the difference. That could contribute to making all the difference, right?
Right.
Good. And it's nice to see that it's not going to be 3%,
Right.
like half that. Great. Nice work.
That's all I had. I was going to talk about the accounting methods, but we already did that
Okay.
earlier, so great.
All
Thank you.
right. Any questions? Any other questions for Ken? No? Okay. Well, finally. Without anything, if we need to look at meeting once again. I think we're in a good position here. I think we can give folks some time to work on accounting methods, report. I don't know, September? September. Okay. I did hear that the first 10 days of the month are not good for some folks, which is fine.
16th is a Wednesday.
Do the 16th?
That would work
Okay.
just fine for me.
9/16 at 10?
Yeah, sounds good.
Hopefully back in council chambers. We've got-
No, I don't know.
We'll see.
Honestly, I don't know. Like I said, I was just at work yesterday to do some printing, and they've got a sign in the elevators. And of course, you know, the Rhodes Tower's got 40 floors, and they have 3 separate elevator banks. And in the elevator, it said, maximum occupancy is 4 people. And I looked at the 4 corners, and I thought, that's not 6 feet. How's that gonna work?
Hold your breath.
So I don't know, I mean, they're a part of our operations that will be permanently working from home. Not all of us can do that. I actually, it's kind of nice, at least in the summertime. Okay, now that we've set our meeting 9/16/20 at 10, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Mayor seconds. Mayor Schneider.
Yes?
Council President
Yes.
Miracle.
Sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz.
Yes?
Mr. Shepherd.
Yep.
Mr. Quinlan.
Yes.
Sharon. Yes. We are adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.